We're studying the book of Shmuel Bet, chapter 6, verse 2, and it's one of the most packed few sentences with a lot to them, and it's mind-boggling. I mean, you open books upon books to find all kinds of goodies. And it's really amazing how much you can pack in so little. We're finding ourselves in the year 2891. The year 2891, Jewish calendar, of course, which was exactly 441 years from 43 years, 440. From Yetziat Mitzrayim, from coming out of Egypt. Okay? And why is it so important? Because those verses, this chapter, is also a very famous haftarah. We know that when you read the Torah on Shabbos, so at the end of the laning, we read a piece of prophets, a piece which relates very tightly with the events of the parasha. Similar events that happened many years later, similar lessons to be learned, similar topics. So this is the haftarah of Parashat Shmini. What is the laning of Parashat Shmini? The laning of Parashat Shmini is starting by discussing the dedication of the Beit HaMikdash, the tabernacle in the desert. 2 years after we got out of Egypt, we have built the tabernacle, and now it was time to dedicate it. So it starts on the 8th day of dedication, by Yom HaShmini, right? On the 8th day, that's the parasha, and it ends with a tragedy. What happened is that two of Aaron's sons died. They died because they made a mistake, a terrible mistake. They did. They went into Beit HaMikdash improperly. They were not. They drank wine, and they had not in a crazy way, not in a fun way, in a holy way, but still not correct for the occasion, for the place, and they died. So that is the Parashat Shmini. To that we attach at the end our section here, which is discussing a similar topic. It was not the dedication of the temple, but it was an event leading to the dedication of Beit HaMikdash by bringing the ark over to Yerushalayim. And during that event, there was also an unexpected death, a death of a gentleman by the name of ועוזה, who touched the ark as it was wheeled towards Yerushalayim, and instantaneously died. And so that is the connecting, the connecting event, or the connecting topic between the Parashat Shmini, and the haftarah here. Now, there are many discussions about regarding why the person died and the way he died, and the most common answer is because David made a mistake. David, who led this procession to take the ark and to bring it to Yerushalayim, he made a mistake, and therefore the person died. Now, unfortunately, when you have the word mistake in one of our greats, people right away, some modern commentators are they're taking it as a sport to emphasize the mistake and to make sure that we all can relate to it. The mistake of David HaMelech is not our mistake. It's really totally a different animal. And let me just start, because I think it's so important to understand the intricacies here. Let me just ask you a question. Does anyone, and raise your hand because some of you are muted, does anybody remember the riveting events of the year 1580, which is exactly 440 years ago? Don't Google, please. Don't open an encyclopedia. Don't ask, do you remember? Nobody knows. Nobody knows. Nobody remembers. 1580, just a year, okay. There, if you Google, you find a whole bunch of events, usually related to church. But whatever, it's not something we remember. This is the situation that David found himself. He found himself in a place where he needed to realize events and halachot, instructions that were given 440 years ago. It's like asking you, do you remember some movement of a piece of furniture in 1580? Forget about world wars that happen, when Hamburg, whatever. It's some big things that happen, assassinations, or we're talking about a movement of a piece of furniture, from one place to the other, and you have to remember it to do it exactly so, and otherwise there is a mistake. So it's not like a mistake that we can relate to, because nobody is expecting us to remember that. Nobody is expecting us to know those things. And David HaMelech is in a class of its own. David HaMelech and our greats. So when he made a mistake, it's not that he forgot things necessarily. He had a whole different calculation. So part of what we're going to be discussing is all of the different calculations that he had to do what he did, and why it's still considered a mistake, and why it's still considered something that he shouldn't have done, because after all, the person died. It's not that some noble thing that happened here. There was something that resulted in the death of a person. So with that, we're going to dive into it, and we'll go slowly, because there are a lot here. So that's actually introduction number one. Introduction number two, let's just talk about the actual what happened, to the staging of it. So David HaMelech just became the king of all the Jews. He is king of the tribe of Judah for 7 years, and now he is the king of all of the Jews. The first thing that he did is move his headquarters, his capital city, from Hebron, which is the capital of the tribe of Yehudah, moved it to Yerushalayim, which is the capital city of all of the Jewish people. He needed to. There were some, people who didn't agree with that move. They were sitting there and they thought that they had claims to the place, but he resolved it fairly quickly, and now he has a place. He has a place for the to create Beit HaMikdash, to bring Beit HaMikdash. What happened with the Beit HaMikdash? Where was it? Where is it? Where is it now? So Beit HaMikdash was in limbo at this point, because the city of Shiloh, which was the location in which the Beit HaMikdash was for 369 years, that Shiloh was demolished, was abandoned. There was a war with the Philistines. During the war, the Jews took from Shiloh, from the temple that was there, took the ark with the tablets, and took it and put it in front of the warriors, in front of the troops, in order to help us win the war. They made a mistake. They shouldn't have taken it. They shouldn't have done it. We lost the ark at that point. And when we lost the ark, the whole city of Shiloh, the whole setup in Shiloh fell apart. And so we quickly took whatever is left in Shiloh, which was the rest of the utensils, the table and the altars and all of that, we took it away and we put it in we built it in a temporary location in Nov, in Giva, in several locations. It was in two places basically. The ark was in exile. The ark was taken away, was captured by the Philistines for 7 months. After 7 months, they returned it, and after couple of stops, it landed in a place called Kiryat Yearim. Kiryat Yearim is a small town near Jerusalem. As you go up from the main highway, it's on your right. You can see it. Kiryat Yearim is a famous place, small nowadays. And in this Kiryat Yearim itself, it was in a hill in the Giv'ah. It's whole hilly over there, but I guess Kiryat Yearim had several sections, several neighborhoods. There was one neighborhood that called the Giv'ah, which belonged to a gentleman by the name of Avinadav, and he hosted the ark, the holy ark. He hosted it there for 20 years. For 20 years, while the whole time that Shmuel was ruling Am Israel, the time that Shaul was ruling Am Israel, and the 7 years. So Shmuel was ruling Am Israel for 10 years, and then Saul was together with Shmuel for another year, and then 2.5 years of Saul alone, and then 7 years of David. Total of 20 years. So for 20 years, that the ark was in that place in Kiryat Yearim. Just as a note, Kiryat Yearim was a border city. Okay, it was the border between the tribe of Benjamin and the tribe of Judah, Yehuda and Binyamin. The most of the town, Kiryat Yearim, belonged to the tribe of Yehuda, and that section, that Givah, that hill, that place, the house of Avinadav, belonged to the tribe of Binyamin. Just remember that because it will come back to us in a second. So that's where we are. It's time now, after we have the place, Yerushalayim, is ready to become our official capital city. Now we need to bring the content to it. The capital city needs to have what do you have in London? You have the crown in the Tower of London. You have the crown, the jewels, the important in Israel, in Yerushalayim. Now you have the archives. You have the treasures of the nation. So we needed to bring the content into the Yerushalayim, and that is the Holy Ark. Now, until that time, there was no possibility to do it because the ruling king was from the tribe of Binyamin, right? Shaul, Saul, and his son Ishbosheth, right, were from the tribe of Benjamin. The ark was sitting in a parcel of land that belonged to the tribe of Benjamin in the Giv'ah. So it sort of fit what was going on. Now that the baton was the ruling, the ruler became David, and the baton was passed to him, and now it was moved. The ruling of the kingdom, the leader of the Jewish people, changed from the tribe of Benjamin to the tribe of Yehuda. So now it was time to bring the ark from the area of Benjamin to the area of Yehuda, right? To the city of Jerusalem, which is mostly the place of Yehuda. We will go back to it because it ended up not being so, but that was the thinking. That was what everybody expected. To take it from Kiryat Yearim was a small place. The hill in Kiryat Yearim, the Givah, was even a smaller place. Definitely not central. It was time to bring it to Yerushalayim. So, Vayakom Vayelech David v'chol ha'am. So David stood up and went together with all the nation asher ito, all the nations that were with him, which was at this point all of the people, all of the Jewish people, mi ba'alei Yehuda, from a place called Baalei Yehuda, which in a second we'll say what that is. La'alot misham et Aron HaElokim, to bring from there the ark of God. Asher nikra, what is the ark of God? It's called Shem. It has a name, the name of God on it, and then he proceeds to call it all the three names of God that are in play, mostly with the prophets, which is Shem, Hashem, Tzvakot, which is the name of God, who is the one who is facilitating strength, facilitating the existence of Am Israel, the existence of the world, and the ark of God that had the Kruvim, they had the angels, right? The Holy Ark had two angels on it. So it gives a very specific description of the ark, which is a little strange. We'll talk about that as well. So, now what is Baalei? So first of all, one of the very important items here in this verse is the fact that David was a consensus maker. He tried to not make decisions on his own. He tried to consult with the people. He tried to rally the troops. Imagine nowadays that somebody is going to announce, we are going to bring Aron HaEdut, we're going to bring the ark that held in it before, not right now, but it held in it the tablets. We're going to bring it to Yerushalayim. It's not just a moving exercise. It's something very spiritual. It's something very important. It's something very that can take the entire uplift the entire nation. So what David does at that point, he tried to create consensus and uplift everyone. And imagine all of the 400, 500,000 people are coming to participate in this procession of bringing the ark to Yerushalayim. And they all are pumped up. Now, Baalei Yehuda is another word to Kiryat Yearim. Okay, Kiryat Yearim is where the ark was. So, as we mentioned several times, the same story is being told here, and it's being told in the book of Chronicles. So, in the book of Chronicles, it says that they went to Kiryat Yearim to bring the ark, and here it says they're going from Kiryat Yearim, from Baalei Yehuda, to bring the ark. And what does it mean? How can you go from and to do the same thing? So the rabbis mentioned is that all of the people, the entire crowd, came to Kiryat Yearim, which was the area of the tribe of Yehuda, and over there they set up shop and prepared to dance in front of the ark as it's going to Yerushalayim. But a smaller group departed the main crowd and went to that small section, to that small hill, to the house of Avinadav to actually fetch the Aron from there. They didn't all go to that small house, to that small area where the ark was. So they did come to Kiryat Yearim, but they also went from Kiryat Yearim to the hill, to the Givah, to bring the Aron. That's how you can explain both directions in the same event. Now, what does it mean, Shem Hashem Tzvakot? What is he talking about here? What is the qualification of that he is giving here? So that is something that got me excited, because I found something really, really delicious that explain a big question here. And you might have remembered, we spoke about it a long time ago, a little bit. When the troops 20 years ago took the ark to the war, okay, they took the ark from Shiloh, and they took it to lead the war. Over there it's called the Ark of the Covenant of God. Aron Brit Hashem. Here it doesn't say Covenant of God. Why? When we took it out of Shiloh, it's the Covenant of God, and when we bring it back, it's not the Covenant of God. It's the same Ark. Why does it have a different naming? So the story goes, and we did discuss it, is that it was a big mistake to take the tablets from the Mikdash to the war. The tablets were supposed to stay in the Holy of Holies. It was not. It's not a traveling show to take it to all kinds of locations. What they used to do before that in the wars of Joshua, of Yoshua, they took the broken tablets. Both of them, the broken and the whole tablets, were resting in the Holy of Holies. So Yoshua took the broken tablets on to help us in the war, but the complete tablets, the second tablets, remained in the Holy of Holies. At the time of Eli, when the ark was taken away, the Jews made a mistake, because again, it was 369 years after the war that Yoshua did, so people really didn't remember what's going on. So they took the wrong tablets. They took the full tablets instead of the broken tablets. And so what happens is the full tablets are the ones that are the brit. They are the covenant. It's the covenant between us and God. Is that God gave us this receipt? Here are the tablets to tell you this is the covenant between us. So when the ark is taken away from Shiloh, it has the tablets in it. So it's called the Ark of Brit Hashem. During the war, when things went from bad to worse, and we realized that we're losing the ark, a gentleman, an unknown gentleman by the name of Shaul, who became later on the king, decided that he can let the tablets fall in enemies' hands. So he muscled from inside the ark they were holding on to. It was a golden ark. He had too many people, too many hands on it. He couldn't take that one. But he was able to open the ark and take the tablets. The tablets are just two pieces of stone to the unsuspecting Philistine soldier. They didn't take the stones. Just give us the gold. He was able to muscle those two tablets and take them back to Shiloh, take him back to Eli, to the high priest. So the covenant was not in the ark anymore. So the covenant, the tablets, went back to Shiloh, and Shiloh was disbanded, so it was put in a second ark. We'll talk about in a second about the second ark. It was put in a second ark, so that second ark became the Ark of the Covenant. The original ark with the golden ark with the angels did not have tablets in it. So that's why he's going through a very long description of what we're talking about. We're talking about the ark that had the name of God. Yes, it had the names of God in it, written on paper, on parchment. That still remained in there. But it didn't have the tablets. It had the angels above it. Yes, but it didn't have the tablets. So it was sort of demoted by the fact, because he didn't have the tablet, it was demoted. So the verse here is going through a long description to get us to understand what ark we're talking about. Okay, so that ark is sitting there, and now it's time to bring it up to Yerushalayim. So what do? They remember what happened 20 years ago. Do you remember what happened 20 years ago, right? Everybody remembers at least some things that happened 20 years ago. Much better than things that happened 440 years ago. So, 20 years ago, when the ark arrived at the Giv'ah, at that place, at Kiryat Yarim, how did the ark arrive there? It arrived on a wagon. It arrived on a wagon with cows. The Philistines had trouble with the ark. The ark was wreaking havoc in their midst, and they wanted to get rid of it. So they put the ark on a wagon. They put a bunch of cows, hooked them up to the wagon, and sent the cows, go. And the cows felt where they need to go, and they came towards the territory of Israel, and basically returned the ark to its rightful owner. So 20 years ago that happened. So people remember, so that's how you take the ark. So they brought the ark. They created. So they built a new wagon, because that old wagon from 20 years ago did not survive, according to most. What they did with that ark, with that wagon, the Philistines' wagon, they broke it apart, and they used the wood to burn sacrifices to thank Hashem for the gift, for bringing back the ark. So the wagon didn't survive. So they had to build a new wagon. So they built a new wagon. Now this is the first mistake that everybody's saying that it's a big mistake, and that's the source of all the other mistakes. Why? What's the mistake? The mistake is very simple. We learned in when we were traveling in the desert, after we built the tabernacle, there was a clear instructions on how we moved, how we go through the travels, right? For 38 years, or 40 years, we were traveling in the desert. We traveled for 40 years, but for 38 years we had the tabernacle. So we were traveling for 38 years, and with the tabernacle. So it was a very clear instructions how that happens. How do you move from place to place? And it was very clear directive to carry the ark on the Levim's shoulders, not to put it on a wagon. There were few wagons that were created to move the rest of the tabernacle. The tabernacle was made out of heavy pieces of wood and hide, which was long and heavy and big. So we needed wagons to carry that. But the utensils, including the ark, that was not allowed to be carried in a wagon because it's not respectful enough. And the Leviim, the Levites, were the ones that were entrusted in carrying it by foot, and they were carrying it on their shoulders. And this is the main complaint, so to speak. Why didn't David do that? Why didn't he bring Levites, Leviim, and told them, carry the ark on your shoulders? Why did you have to carry it on a wagon? Now, just not to leave you at suspense, there is a big issue regarding understanding how to carry the ark throughout the generations. And the main confusion starts really as we were coming into the land of Israel. So for 40 years we were traveling in the desert. When we were traveling in the desert, the Levites, the Levim, were holding the ark on their shoulders, and they were walking, and by foot they brought it up. But in order to cross the Yarden, the Jordan River, when we crossed it, it's not the Levites that carried the ark. It's the Kohanim that carried the ark. If you recall, we had Kohanim carrying the ark, and it says that the ark actually carried the Kohanim, but the Kohanim were the ones that took it into the land of Israel, and in Eretz Israel itself. There were several times that it's mentioned that the Kohanim were carrying it. So now, the Levites are no longer carrying it. It's the Kohanim that are carrying it. Now, so right away, we see that there is a change here. So what is the change? So the rabbis are explaining that the obligation to carry for the Levite, for the Levim, to carry the ark on the shoulders, that was only applicable in the desert. As soon as we finish with the desert, now it's the Kohanim, still carrying it on the shoulders. So it's still a question why David HaMelech did not do it, which we'll see in a second. But this is the first complaint, the first mistake. There were 6 mistakes, supposedly in the coming verses. So first of all, they carried it on a wagon. And they also carried it from the house of Avinadav. What does he mean? the wagon did not, they didn't have a walk-in garage, so the wagon did not make it into the house and make it close to the house. But from the house to the wagon, they had people carrying it. And who were those people? Those people were ועוזה ואחיו ואחיו בני אבינדב נוהגים את העגלה החדשה. So Uzzah and Achiu, those are the sons of Avinadav. They were the ones who coordinated that, and they were the ones that were driving the wagon. Now, 20 years ago, when the ark arrived on a wagon from the Philistines area, it came with cows attached to the wagon. Here, they attached cows to the wagon, but the cows didn't want to move. And that was not a good, it was sort of a hint to them, it's not working. Maybe you should not be doing this. But they just disconnected the cows and attached themselves to it. So they attached themselves, and they were taking, basically driving the wagon with the people, the two kids, the two Achiu and Uzzah. They were moving themselves, moving the wagon as if they were horses attached to it. So now, who were those Avinadav, the family of Avinadav? So there are two opinions. They're either Kohanim or actually Israelim, just regular people. And definitely not Levite, definitely not Levim. And that was the mistake number 2. So mistake number 1 is that we put it on a wagon. Mistake number 2 is that even when people did it, it was not the right people. It wasn't the Levim. And then Vayisu mi bet Avinadav asher bagiva. Remember, we had all of the crowd waiting in Kiryat Yearim, and only a small group of people came to the house of Avinadav, and they took it from the house of Avinadav asher bagiva. And im Aron Elokim v'achiyu olech lifnei. So I missed one mistake. So mistake number 1 is a wagon. Mistake number 2 that they didn't let the cows carry the wagon. They put people. And mistake number 3 is that when they brought from the house the ark to the wagon, people carried it which were not the Levites. Vayisum bet Avinadav asher bagiva, right? V'achiyu olech lifnei Aaron. Now, number 4, the problem number 4 is that it turns out that Achiyu, which is one of the brothers, he was walking in front of the wagon, carrying it, right? Pulling it, I guess, right? So the other one was like maybe in the back, helping push it, but Achiyu was in the front of it. Now, when he was in the front of it, his back was to the ark. And that was totally disrespectful, because when the Levites were holding the ark on their shoulder, as well as when the Kohanim were crossing the ark from Jordan to Israel, they were facing the ark. They were facing the ark for total respect. You can't put your back to the ark. It's not respectful. So that's mistake number 4. Mistake number 5 is that when they carried it, they didn't carry it with the poles. There is a very, very strong commandment to create 2 poles, 2 sticks, and to put the sticks in holes that were made especially for it, in rings that were made especially for it on the sides of the ark. And with those poles, you're supposed to carry the ark. And it says that those poles are not supposed to leave those rings. Lo yamush. It's not allowed. Even when it's parked in the Holy of Holies, you have those 2 poles. So obviously, when the ark was taken hostage by the Philistines, they didn't care about the poles. They threw away the poles, and just poles. So when he came back, he came back without the poles. No poles. It stayed in Avinadav's place for 20 years with no poles. Okay, they didn't have it maybe, but when you carry it, you can't carry it barehanded. You know, you have to hold it in the poles, and they didn't do it. And finally, v'David v'chol bet Israel, David and all of the crowd, all of the Jewish people, mesachakim lifnei Hashem. They were joking and dancing and celebrating in front of God with very, very good intention, but with no awe. You know, they were too happy. They were too celebratory with when you bring the Ark of the Covenant, the Ark of God, you bring it over. You know, you need to have a little bit of respect, a little bit. You can't just go crazy like it's Purim. You know, that was a mistake that they made. Now, it manifested itself in that when they were celebrating, they were using all kinds of instruments and all kinds of props. They started by using bechol atzei broshim. They started by using a lulav of a cypress tree. Okay, a cypress tree is just a tree that's common in that area of the world. If you've been to Kiryat Yearim, you'll see a lot of cypress trees till this very day. And so they took branches of the cypress tree and we're dancing around with that. Bekinorot with violins, and nevalim with those big strings, whatever. It's a string. It's a string instrument. Betupim, those are the drums. Bemenaneim, menaneim. This is some sort of a big copper instrument that you bang on with small pieces of copper, and ubetziltzilim, which is the trumpets. Okay, so basically a hodgepodge of all kinds of instruments, bands, whatever they can find. The problem is that there is what's missing here? Can anybody guess? Can anybody see what is the very striking? What's missing here that we know we use in Bet HaMikdash all the time?
Trumpets.
Trumpets is betziltzalim, that's the trumpets. The last word, that's the trumpets. Okay? It's mentioned here cymbals, but it's not real cymbals, it's trumpet. But the main one is shofar. You do not have a shofar, you know, and they are very, very exact utensils that we need to use in Beit HaMikdash. We use nevel, we use violin, harp, or nevel is harp. We use harp, we use violins, we use trumpets, and we use a shofar. We don't use cypress trees, and we don't use those menani, whatever the heck they are, and we don't use drums. So it was, not thought through. Now, vayavo ad Goren Nachon, they came until a place which is called Goren Nachon, which is it's a close by area, and it's so close that it's actually just about 6 steps away from where they started. 6 steps. They were able to take 6 steps, and then the problem was, the punishment came. Vayishlach Uzzah el Aron Elokim vayochaz bo kishamto abakar. So the oxen stumbled. So again, the oxen were not really helping them carrying it. They carried it themselves a little bit, and then they tried to put the oxen again, and the oxen were not cooperating, and the oxen basically sort of dropped the wagon. And when they dropped the wagon, the ark was shaking, and this gentleman Uzzah, one of the sons of Avinadav, felt that the ark needs his help. The ark of the covenant, the holiest furniture, piece of furniture that the Jewish people ever had, it needs his help. And he touched it in order to prevent it from falling, and that was too much. You cannot handle the ark that way, and he was struck and was killed on the spot, as if somebody struck him with a spear. Vayichar af Hashem b'Uzzah. So God, God is waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting, and then when it spills over, it's over. And Vayakeu Sham, so God struck him al Hashel on the spot. Vayamot Sham imaron Hashem Elokim, and he died right there and then with the ark. So, and that is the basic story of what happened. Now,
let me ask a question.
Please.
The ark was falling, so he was trying to save it. Would it have been better just to let it fall to the ground?
Oh, now, so let's remember what was the ark doing when 400 years earlier, when we crossed the Jordan River. There is a very exact description in Yehoshua of what happened. What happened was that the Kohanim were holding the ark, but then the ark was lifting the Kohanim off the ground and crossing them the river. And the Medrash is telling us that this is exactly what happened here too. That when Uzzah and his brother were holding it originally, were taking it from the house onto the wagon, they were lifted by the ark. The ark had some crazy magical powers that, it's not to be understood and not to be dismissed. And the ark was not supposed to be touched freehand by anyone. So yes, from his perspective, he thought that he's doing something noble. It's doing something great. But from God's perspective, it's one mistake and another mistake and another mistake and another mistake. 6 mistakes. That was enough. And that was mistake number 7. We have to stop this. Now, later on, when it was brought back again, when 3 months later, they paused, and 3 months later the ark came back, they continued. Every 6 steps, they paused. They didn't take it more than 6 steps at a time. And every 6 steps, they paused, and they brought a korban. And then another 6 steps and a korban. And another 6 steps and a korban. And by the way, when we take the Torah nowadays from the Aron, when before we lane, we take the Torah. What do we say? Ya'alelu gadlu Hashem iti unerumema shmo yachdav. 6 words. Those 6 words are commemorating those 6 steps that they were taking. Initially, when between the time that they took it to the time that Uzzah died, and the 6 steps that later on they advanced their own 6 steps at a time in order to not hurt the people. Anyway, I'm just gonna. We almost finished with the time, and I'm sure the rabbi is gonna come soon. But I'm just gonna say one thing, and next time I'm gonna elaborate on it. There is a long discussion. Why did David make this mistake? It's obviously something that was not right. And we all agree that it's not right. And with all our willingness to say, it's not the same mistake as our mistake, but it was a mistake according in David's level. It was a mistake. If I would do it, nobody expects anything from us. But from David, God expected more. So why was he making this mistake? So the rabbis are saying, and I'll quote what they're saying. There is a verse in Tehillim, Zmirot ayu li chukecha bebet megurai, that when I was running away, when I was in exile, David said, learning Torah while I'm in exile, while I was running away from Shaul, I had trouble. It was a horrible time in my life. But what saved me, what gave me the feeling that everything is okay, is learning Torah. That was like songs in my ear. It was an amazing experience, like listening to an amazing symphony. That's what, and because he sort of degraded supposedly the value of Torah, that's why he was punished by allowing him to make this mistake. Now there is a whole different view on this, and a very Hasidic explanation as to what it means what he did and why he did it, and why was he punished, and it gives a whole new twist to the story. We will start with that next time. I see the rabbi is here, so thank you guys.